Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at something that I think is really important in all areas of life, and that's how we can think smart, speak fluently, and write well.
And we're lucky enough to have some great material to help us out here. You send over some really cool stuff, including an expanded podcast script from Dr. James Carter, who's a communication expert.
Oh yeah, Dr. Carter. He always has such good insights. So yeah, this deep dive is your shortcut to improving these essential skills.
Definitely. And you know what's really fascinating to me is how these skills all kind of work together. It's not just about like being book smart. It's about how we approach challenges, decisions, even everyday conversations.
Okay, so let's start with this idea of thinking smart. I think Dr. Carter mentioned that it's not just about, acing math problems or anything like that. So what is he getting at? What does it really mean to think smart?
Well, he's really emphasizing the idea that thinking smart is about real-world problem solving. Like sometimes you get stuck in a rut, making the same decisions over and over again. Thinking smart is about how you break free from those patterns.
Oh, yeah.
It's about using mental tools to analyze situations from different angles. And then you can make choices that lead to better outcomes for you and for everyone.
So it's kind of like having a mental toolkit, I guess.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful tools in that toolkit is critical thinking, which is all about how we evaluate information. So it's not just passively absorbing it, but really thinking about it.
I feel like critical thinking is the foundation for everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
So where do we even begin? How do we start developing that skill of critical thinking?
Dr. Carter suggests 3 key strategies.
Okay.
The first is to start asking better questions. For example, imagine a company's deciding whether to expand into a new market. Instead of just asking, should we do it? They dig a little deeper. What problem are they solving for that market? What are the long-term risks? What about the rewards? You really have to think strategically about it, not just react.
So it's about asking those why and how questions, really getting to the heart of things.
Precisely. The second strategy he suggests is to utilize mental models.
Mental models.
Yeah, think of these as frameworks for understanding the world. One tool might be a SWOT analysis, where you assess a situation's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Oh, yeah.
Another might be something called the Eisenhower matrix, which helps you prioritize tasks based on urgency and importance. So there are all these different models, and by learning these models and how to apply them, you can really tackle challenges more strategically.
Wow, yeah. I've never thought of it that way. It's like having different lenses to look through to analyze a problem or a situation.
Exactly. And the third strategy Dr. Carter emphasizes is developing a growth mindset, which basically means believing that your intelligence and skills can be developed over time. It's about embracing challenges as opportunities to learn and grow.
I love that because that really reminds me of, the saying, the only constant is change.
Exactly. And embracing change and being open to learning is so key to thinking smart.
This is all great, but, we all have our own biases. How do those biases affect our thinking? I mean, don't they get in the way of clear thinking?
That's such a great question. We all have biases. They're like these mental shortcuts that our brains use to make quick decisions. But sometimes those shortcuts can lead us to make errors in judgment.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So you have to watch out for them.
Can you give us an example? What kind of biases are we talking about?
Well, a really common one is confirmation bias, which is basically our tendency to look for information that confirms what we already believe. Like, you only read articles that agree with your existing views, even though there might be other perspectives out there.
That makes sense. I think I've definitely fallen into that trap before.
It's easy to do.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Another bias is anchoring bias, which tricks us into relying too heavily on the first piece of information we hear.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you're negotiating a salary and the first number mentioned is low. You might get anchored to that number even if you deserve way more.
Yeah.
So the key is to do your research. Get a more complete picture. Don't just jump to conclusions based on that first piece of information.
That's such good advice.
And then there's the availability heuristic,
Mm.
which makes us judge things based on examples that easily come to mind, even if those examples aren't statistically representative of the whole picture.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I haven't heard of that one before. Can you give us an example?
Yeah, so think about crime rates. People often overestimate crime rates because those sensationalized stories are really easily recalled.
Right.
Even if the actual data shows that crime is declining.
Yeah, so it's like our brains are drawn to the most dramatic stories, even if they don't really reflect reality.
Exactly. You always have to look at the bigger picture. Using data and statistics and not just those anecdotes that just pop into your head.
So I guess being aware of these biases is the first step towards overcoming them.
Absolutely. Overcoming bias takes conscious effort. You have to be curious and willing to challenge your own assumptions.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So we talked about the foundations of thinking smart. It's all about critical thinking, having those right mental tools, and being aware of those biases. But how do we actually put this into practice? Like, how do we take all this from our heads and into the real world, especially when it comes to speaking our minds?
That is a great question and a perfect transition to our next topic, which is speaking fluently.
Speaking fluently. Ooh, yes.
And speaking fluently is all about communicating clearly and confidently
Oh, I like that. Speaking fluently.
and connecting with your audience on an emotional level.
Yes. Connecting and confidently.
So it's not just about using fancy vocabulary or giving a perfectly memorized speech.
Mhm.
It's about conveying your ideas clearly and with confidence and connecting with your audience in a genuine way.
Okay, so it's about being authentic and engaging, not just reciting a script.
Exactly.
Now, what about those of us who get really nervous when we have to speak, especially in front of a crowd?
You are not alone. Dr. Carter reminds us that nerves are totally normal. And even the most confident speakers, they had to start somewhere.
That's good to hear.
He actually suggests a few techniques to manage those pre-speech jitters.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's
Um,
the first step to calming those nerves?
Well, preparation is key. But Dr. Carter also cautions against over-rehearsing.
Hmm.
While it's important to know your material, well, you don't want to sound too robotic,
Oh, right, yeah.
because if you sound too robotic, you kind of disconnect from your audience.
Yeah.
So the goal is to find that sweet spot where you're prepared, but you still sound conversational and genuine.
Okay, so you have to find that balance between preparation and a natural delivery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another thing that can make a huge difference is controlling your breathing.
Breathing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when we're nervous, we tend to take shallow breaths, which can make your voice shaky. So Dr. Carter recommends practicing deep breathing techniques to calm your nerves.
Oh, that's really interesting. I've actually never thought about using breathing techniques to calm my nerves before a presentation.
That can really help.
That's a game changer. I have to try that next time I feel those butterflies. What else does Dr. Carter suggest?
He suggests shifting your focus from yourself to your audience.
Oh, okay.
Instead of worrying about how you're doing, you want to focus on how you can help your audience.
Okay, yeah.
When you genuinely want to connect with them and share your message, those nerves tend to fade away.
So it's about taking the spotlight off of yourself and putting it on the value you're bringing to the audience.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about everyday conversations, like at work in meetings or even just casual chats. These interactions might not have the same pressure as a formal presentation, but they're still incredibly important.
Oh, for sure. They really are. So how can we level up those everyday communication skills?
Well, Dr. Carter highlights the importance of being present and engaged in conversations. He recommends using what he calls the LACE method.
The LACE method. What's that?
It stands for listen, ask, clarify, and engage.
Oh, I love that acronym. It breaks down effective communication into actionable steps. Okay, let's walk through each part. First up, listen.
Okay.
What does active listening really entail?
Active listening means really focusing on what the other person is saying, not just waiting for your turn to speak. It's about absorbing their words, paying attention to their nonverbal cues, and showing genuine interest in what they're sharing.
It's about being fully present in the conversation and not just thinking about what you're going to say next.
Exactly. The second step is to ask thoughtful questions. This shows that you're engaged and encourages the other person to elaborate on their thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. Asking questions is such a powerful way to show that you're not just hearing what they're saying, but that you're actually understanding it.
Yes, definitely. And then we have clarifying, which is all about making sure that you're both on the same page. If something is unclear, paraphrase what the other person said to confirm your understanding.
Okay.
That way you avoid any misunderstandings. And then we come to engage.
Okay, so how do we make sure we're engaging effectively?
Engaging means responding in a way that adds value to the conversation. It could be sharing your own perspective, offering support, or asking follow-up questions to really deepen the discussion.
Okay, so the LEE method provides a framework for more meaningful and productive conversations.
Exactly.
I love that. Now, while the LACE method is great for everyday chats, what happens when you need to address a larger group? Like, public speaking can feel really daunting for a lot of people. I bet Dr. Carter has some tips for us on that.
He does. Public speaking, like any skill, improves with practice. And Dr. Carter highlights 3 key elements for captivating an audience.
Okay, let's hear them. What are the three keys to captivating an audience?
The first is knowing your audience. So you tailor your message to their interests, their knowledge level, their concerns.
Oh, right.
The more you can connect with them on a personal level, the more engaged they'll be.
It's like customizing your message so that it resonates with the specific people in the room.
Exactly. And the second tip is to use stories and examples.
Stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Dr. Carter emphasizes that people connect with stories on an emotional level. We're hardwired to remember and relate to narratives. So if you weave stories into your presentations, it can make your message much more memorable.
So it's not just about presenting facts and figures.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with people's emotions.
Yes, exactly.
And what's the third element?
And finally, Dr. Carter recommends practicing visualization.
Visualization.
Okay. So before your presentation, mentally rehearses delivering your speech with confidence and clarity. Visualizing yourself succeeding can really boost your confidence and help you perform at your best.
So it's all about mindset.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered the foundations of fluent speaking. We talked about managing nerves, mastering everyday conversations, and even delivering those captivating presentations. But what about the written word? In today's digital age, writing skills are more important than ever.
You're absolutely right. Whether we're crafting emails, reports, social media posts, or even just texting a friend, writing clearly and effectively is essential.
Okay, so let's dive into the world of writing. What insights does Dr. Carter have for those of us who want to sharpen our writing skills?
So many people feel like they're just not good writers, you know?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Where do we even begin? Like, how can we actually get better at writing?
Well, Dr. Carter says that good writing boils down to two things: clarity and structure.
Okay.
Your message needs to be clear first and foremost. Avoid unnecessary jargon or complexity. Keep it simple. Simplicity is key.
It's like that famous quote, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough.
Exactly.
But how do we create structure in our writing? Sometimes I feel like my thoughts are just all over the place.
Structure is crucial for guiding your reader, you know. Dr. Carter recommends starting with a strong opening statement, something that grabs the reader's attention right away.
Okay.
Then present your points in a logical order,
Yeah.
building a nice cohesive argument. And then you want to conclude with a powerful statement that reinforces your main message.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Are there any specific techniques that we can use to create that kind of structure?
Yeah, actually there are. One technique Dr. Carter highlights is the pyramid principle.
The pyramid principle.
So imagine a pyramid with your main idea at the very top. Below that, you have supporting arguments. And beneath each argument, you have further evidence and examples. It's a nice hierarchical structure, makes it really easy for your reader to follow your logic.
I love that. That visual of the pyramid, it's like you're giving the reader a road map to follow. Now, what about storytelling and writing? I know people say that stories can make your writing more engaging, but I'm not really sure how to incorporate them effectively.
Yeah, storytelling is really powerful. It lets you connect with your audience on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Whether you're writing a blog post, an email, even a business report.
Yeah.
Weaving in stories can make your writing more memorable and impactful. It brings it to life.
Okay, so how do we become better storytellers in our writing? What does Dr. Carter say?
He suggests starting with a hook, something that grabs the reader's attention from the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
It could be a provocative question, a surprising statistic, or even a personal anecdote.
It's like that first line in a novel that makes you want to keep reading. So what else makes a story compelling?
Dr. Carter really emphasizes using real-life examples. You know, stories about real people and their challenges and their triumphs.
Okay.
They resonate with readers because we can all relate to those experiences.
So it's about making those abstract ideas feel more tangible and relevant to our own lives.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to use emotion. You know,
Yeah.
use language that evokes feelings in your readers. Remember, people remember emotions far better than they remember facts.
It's true. It's about making our writing feel human, not just like a dry recitation of information. Now let's talk about writer's block,
Oh, yeah.
because I know that's something that a lot of writers struggle with. What advice does Dr. Carter have for overcoming those moments when the words just won't come?
Well, writer's block happens to the best of us.
Oh, yeah?
And the key is to just keep writing, even when it feels hard.
Okay.
Dr. Carter suggests a few strategies for breaking through those mental barriers. One is free writing.
Free writing.
Yeah, have you heard of that?
Yeah, I've heard of it, but...
You just set a timer for like 10 minutes and just write whatever comes to mind. Don't worry about grammar structure or even if it makes sense.
Okay.
The goal is just to get those creative juices flowing.
So it's like a brain dump on paper.
Exactly. If the thought of writing the entire piece is overwhelming, Break it down into smaller chunks.
Okay.
Focus on just one section at a time and celebrate each small victory along the way.
Yeah, because breaking down a big task can make it feel much less daunting.
Exactly. And finally, Dr. Carter reminds us that reading can be a powerful source of inspiration. Reading the work of other writers can spark new ideas.
Yeah.
Expose you to different styles and motivate you to keep honing your craft.
So it's like a cycle. Reading inspires writing, and writing inspires more reading. I love that.
It really is. And, with practice, we can all become more confident and effective writers.
Okay, so we've talked about how to think smart, speak fluently, and write well.
It's so cool how these skills are all connected.
It is, and as we've seen, they're essential for success in pretty much all areas of life.
Yeah, definitely.
Dr. Carter has given us some really great tools and strategies to level up our communication and thinking skills. And I think it's important to remember that these skills aren't just innate talents.
Yeah.
They can be developed and refined with practice and the right mindset.
It's about embracing the journey of lifelong learning and always trying to improve.
I love that. Now think about which of these skills you want to focus on first. What's one small experiment you can run this week to apply what you've learned? Remember, even small changes can have a ripple effect on your communication and thinking.
Absolutely. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
I love that. And we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of knowledge and insights.
So many people think they're just not good writers.
Yeah, it's a common feeling. Where do we even start? Like, how can we actually improve our writing?
Dr. Carter, he emphasizes that good writing really boils down to two things: clarity and structure.
Okay, clarity and structure. I like that.
First and foremost, your message needs to be clear.
Okay.
Avoid using jargon or complex language. Keep it simple.
It's like that famous quote, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough.
Right.
But how do we create structure in our writing? I mean, sometimes it feels like my thoughts are just all over the place. Like, how do we organize it all?
Yeah. Structure is crucial.
Yeah.
It's all about guiding your reader through your ideas. Dr. Carter suggests starting with a strong opening statement. Something that grabs your reader's attention right from the start.
Okay.
Then you want to present your points in a logical order
Okay.
to build a cohesive argument.
Right.
And then you want to wrap it up with a powerful conclusion that reinforces your main message.
That makes sense. It really does. Are there any specific techniques that we can use to create that kind of structure?
Yeah, actually there are. One technique Dr. Carter highlights is the pyramid principle.
The pyramid principle. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So imagine a pyramid,
Okay.
and at the very top of the pyramid is your main idea.
Okay.
Below that, you have your supporting arguments. And beneath each argument, you provide evidence and examples. It's this really nice hierarchical structure. Makes it super easy for the reader to follow your logic.
I love that visual, the pyramid. It's like you're giving the reader a roadmap for your writing. So now what about storytelling in writing? I know people always say that stories can make writing more engaging, but I'm not really sure how to incorporate them effectively.
Storytelling is such a powerful tool. It lets you connect with your audience on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Whether you're writing a blog post, an email, even a business report, weaving stories into your writing can make it more memorable and impactful.
It brings it to life.
Exactly.
So how can we become better storytellers in our writing? What tips does Dr. Carter have for us?
He suggests starting with a hook,
Okay, a hook.
something that grabs the reader's attention right away. It could be a provocative question, a surprising statistic, or even a personal anecdote.
It's like that first line in a novel that makes you want to keep reading. So what else makes a good story? What else makes a story compelling?
Dr. Carter really emphasizes using real-life examples,
Life examples. All right.
stories about real people, their challenges and their triumphs. They resonate with readers because we can all relate to those experiences.
Right. It makes those abstract ideas feel more tangible, more relevant to our own lives.
Exactly. And finally, don't be afraid to tap into those emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Use language that evokes feelings in your reader. Remember, people remember emotions far better than they remember facts.
That's so true. It's about making our writing feel more human, you know, not just a bunch of information.
Exactly.
Okay, so now let's talk about writer's block, because I know that's something that a lot of writers struggle with. What does Dr. Carter suggest for overcoming those moments when the words just won't come?
Writer's block happens to all of us.
Oh, yeah.
The key is to just keep writing, even when it feels difficult.
Don't give up.
Yeah. Dr. Carter suggests a few strategies to break through those mental barriers. One is free writing.
Free writing, okay. I've heard of that.
Yeah. You just set a timer for like 10 minutes and write whatever comes to mind.
Yeah.
And just don't worry about grammar or structure or even making sense.
Yeah.
The goal is just to get your creative juices flowing.
So it's like a brain dump onto the paper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if the idea of writing an entire piece feels overwhelming, break it down into smaller chunks.
Okay, yeah.
Just focus on one section at a time.
That makes it less scary.
Right.
Yeah.
Celebrate each small victory along the way.
Yeah, breaking down a big task can make it so much less daunting, for sure.
Exactly. And finally, Dr. Carter reminds us that reading can be a powerful source of inspiration. Reading the work of other writers can spark new ideas, expose you to different styles, and motivate you to keep honing your craft.
I love that idea. It's like a cycle: reading inspires writing, and then writing inspires more reading.
It really is.
I love that. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, exploring how to think smart, speak fluently, and write well.
It's so fascinating how these skills are all connected.
It is, and as we've seen, they're essential for success in pretty much all areas of life.
Definitely.
Dr. Carter has given us some amazing tools and strategies to level up our communication and thinking skills, and I think it's so important to remember that these skills aren't just innate talents.
Yeah.
They can be developed and refined with practice and the right mindset.
It's about embracing that journey of lifelong learning and always striving to improve.
I love that. Now think about which of these skills you want to focus on first. What's one small experiment you can run this week to apply what you've learned? Remember, even small changes can have a big impact on your communication and thinking.
Absolutely. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
I love that. And we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of knowledge and insights.